Welcome back, Focus Learners. Today, we're hitting a massive milestone in our artificial intelligence journey. We're diving into day 4 of managing multi-agent development. And honestly, we're setting the stage for a gigantic leap. We're talking about shifting from single, isolated agents to orchestrating an entire, complex ecosystem of agents that actually work together. This is exactly where theory meets real-world application, so let's get right into mapping out exactly how to build this system. Okay, let's dive into this critical question. When you just have one AI, you give it a prompt, it gives you an answer. It's super straightforward. But how on earth do we manage multiple agents operating at the exact same time? How do they avoid stepping on each other's toes? How do they even know what to do and when to do it? Well, we have to frame our entire explainer around this one core concept. You absolutely need a rigorous architectural blueprint to create a functional, autonomous ecosystem. Because without a blueprint, you don't have a team, you just have total chaos.
Here's how we're going to break down that blueprint today. First, welcome to day 4. Then, identity and responsibilities. Next up, skills and tools. Then we'll cover inputs and outputs, followed by permissions and dependencies, and we'll wrap it all up with the 5-agent project.
Welcome to day 4, building the blueprint.
This is it. This is that pivotal moment where abstract concepts of AI become very concrete engineering. Transitioning from single agents to a cohesive team ecosystem requires a structural blueprint. It's kind of like scaling a startup, right? When it's just you, well, you do everything. But when you start hiring a team, you suddenly need organizational charts, standard operating procedures, and distinct departments. We're no longer just building one AI. We're essentially orchestrating a corporate draft where every single agent in your system needs a highly specific, airtight job description. If you don't define these parameters with absolute clarity, your agents are going to hallucinate their purpose, duplicate efforts, or worst-case scenario, they'll just freeze up completely.
Let's move to section 2 and see how this builds. Identity and responsibilities, defining the core.
We've got 2 distinct concepts here that often get tangled up. First, we have agent roles. Think of this as the agent's fundamental identity, its title, and its overarching purpose. We're talking senior research analyst or lead copywriter. But here's the thing, a title just isn't enough. That is exactly why we pair it with responsibilities. Responsibilities define the strict boundaries of what that specific agent is expected to achieve within the team. So, the role is who they are, while the responsibility is the specific outcome they absolutely own. By separating these two, you're making sure your agent knows its exact place in the ecosystem and precisely what success looks like for its position.
Section 3, skills and tools, defining capabilities.
Once we know who the agents are and what they're supposed to achieve, we have to define their capabilities. And this brilliantly illustrates the duality of an agent's capability. On one hand, we have skills. These are the internal capabilities and cognitive functions hard-coded into the agent. It's what the agent knows how to do natively, like natural language processing, data synthesis, or reasoning logic. On the other hand, we have tools. These are the external instruments, databases, and APIs the agent actually leverages to get the job done. It's literally the difference between knowing how to search for information, which is a skill, and actually having access to a live web search API, which is a tool. You've got to define both if you want to give your agent the real firepower it needs.
Section 4, inputs and outputs, defining information flow. Now that our agents are armed and capable, we're shifting our focus to the machine-like, assembly line nature of a multi-agent system. Much like a physical factory, data has to move seamlessly from one station to the very next. We have to strictly define the exact inputs, that's the specific data, prompts, or context the agent consumes to begin its work. But listen, an input is entirely useless without a defined output, the exact format, structure, and type of data the agent produces. If agent A spits out a messy paragraph, but agent B's input requires a perfectly structured JSON file, your assembly line just broke down. Defining exact inputs and outputs ensures that the baton is passed smoothly from one agent to the next without ever dropping the data.
Section 5, permissions and dependencies, defining governance.
This block is all about defining governance and the rules of engagement across your entire agent team. Now, what's really interesting about this framework is how it frames control within an autonomous system. Permissions act as your safety guardrails. What is this agent strictly authorized or explicitly forbidden to do? Like, can it actually write to the database or is it read-only? Can it send a live email to a real human or just draft it? Conversely, dependencies dictate the actual order of operations. It defines who or what the agent is waiting on before it's even allowed to activate.
Let's do a deep dive into this specific definition of dependencies for a second, because this is absolutely vital. A dependency is a requirement where one agent relies on the specific output or completion of a task by another agent before it can proceed. Why is this so crucial? Because understanding and mapping your dependencies is the absolute linchpin of preventing bottlenecks in your multi-agent architecture. Think about it. If agent C depends on agent B, and agent B depends on agent A, you have a linear dependency chain. If you mess up that mapping, you get agents stuck in infinite waiting loops. You have to map this out perfectly.
Section 6, the 5-Agent Project, the ultimate challenge. We have arrived at the climax of today's syllabus. This is where we take every single abstract concept we just meticulously defined and apply it to a real-world scenario. So the crucial point is that you need all of these pieces working in perfect harmony. Here is your ultimate checklist. To build an agent, you must explicitly define its role, its responsibilities, its skills, its tools, its inputs, its outputs, its permissions, and its dependencies. These 8 attributes, taken straight from the source material, form the absolute DNA of a well-architected AI worker.
5. That is the target scale for the culminating challenge. For the final project outlined in the text, you aren't just building one agent. You are building 5. This is the scale that's truly going to test your grasp on multi-agent development.
Here is the formal project requirement. Design a 5-agent business team using those 8 defined attributes. I'm challenging you to synthesize the blueprint we've just outlined. Think of a real business process. Maybe it's content creation, maybe it's high-level financial analysis, or maybe it's complex customer support. Map out 5 distinct agents. Give every single one a role. Define their precise responsibilities. Arm them with skills and tools. Connect them by mapping their inputs directly to each other's outputs. Secure them with permissions. And finally, sequence them using those all-important dependencies.
I want to leave you with this provocative question to spark your own engineering process today. How will you design your 5-agent business team? What workflow is complex enough to actually require 5 specialized agents? And how will you guarantee they operate as a seamless, unified ecosystem rather than just 5 noisy bots shouting over each other? Grab a whiteboard, pull up that 8-attribute checklist, and start mapping out your blueprint today. Thank you so much for exploring Day 4 with me. Now get out there and build your team.